On January 13, 2010, someone logged in as Chris Botticella and opened 12 confidential files. The whole sequence took 13 seconds. Less than 1 second per file. The company that went to court over those files bakes Thomas English Muffins and files its annual report in Mexico City. In pesos. A forensic examiner later told a federal court that the pattern was inconsistent with ordinary use and consistent with copying files simultaneously. Botticella said he had been deleting and restoring files for practice. The district judge found that not credible. Botticella was vice president of operations for California at Bimbo Bakeries USA. He'd earned $250,000 a year and was responsible for 5 production plants. He had also agreed to go work for Hostess, a competitor. His employer went to court to stop him. On July 27, 2010, the Third Circuit Court of Appeals held that it could. What it granted was a preliminary injunction. The reason was a muffin. In the court's words, he was, quote, one of only 7 people who possessed all of the knowledge necessary to replicate independently Bimbo's popular line of Thomas English Muffins, including the secret behind the muffin's unique nooks and crannies texture. End quote. 7 people. Thomas was then selling around $500 million of those muffins a year. Samuel Bath Thomas began baking those muffins at 337 West 20th Street in Manhattan in 1880. The oven is still there, behind a wall, in what is now an apartment. The company that went to a Philadelphia courtroom to protect his method files its annual report in Mexico City. In pesos. That is not a contradiction. That is the story. This magazine asks 6 questions of everything on an American shelf. Where was it born? Where is it incorporated? Where is the head office? Who owns the shares? Where are the factories? Who signs the paycheck? When the 6th answer is cluster, there is nothing to write. When they scatter, the gap is the article. Grupo Bimbo scatters at the first question. Born, Mexico City, December 2nd, 1945, under the name Pontifica Syon Bimbo. 6 men started it. Lorenzo Cerviti, James Jorba, James Sandra Jose T. Mata, Alfonso Velasco and Roberto Cerviti. There were 4 products, among them a black bread and a pre-toasted loaf. Their stated aim, in the company's own translation, was, quote, to make truly good, nutritious, tasty, fresh bread, to do it the right way, amid cleanliness and as perfect as possible for nurture and pleasure, reaching every household in Mexico. End quote. Incorporated, June 15, 1966. That is when Grupo Bimbo, SAB. The CV, the legal person, now listed on the Mexican Exchange under Commercial Registry Folio 9506, came into existence. 21 years separate the business from the entity. Anyone who writes founded 1945 about the listed company has quietly skipped a generation. The head office is at Prolongación Paseo de la Reforma number 1000, Mexico City. Shareholders. Here the register is public and worth reading slowly. Grupo Bimbo posts a 1-page table of principal shareholders drawn from its stock transfer book. Norma SYL holds 1,763,123,500 shares. 40.96%. Promotions MON Sir holds 12.78. FYE holds 5.41. Grupo Vile AHG holds 5.15. Marello OPAG holds 3.75. A further block of 3.99% sits in the same table, which also carries a line naming Banco Nacional de Mexico in its capacity as trustee. Everything else, listed as others, is 27.97% of 4,304,744,119 shares. Add the named blocks, 40.96, plus 12.78, plus 5.41, plus 5.15, plus 3.99, plus 3.75. That is 72.04%. My arithmetic. 7 shares in every 10 already have an owner. What the company does not publish, and what I could not establish from any primary document, is which family stands behind which holding company. The founders' surnames are on the record. The line joining them to those entities is not. Factories, 249 plants worldwide at the end of 2025. Payroll, more than 153,000 people and more than 54,000 delivery routes across 93 countries with direct operations in 39. Net sales for 2025 were 426,952 million pesos, of which North America accounted for 190,211 million. That is 44.6%, and I divided it myself. So where is a loaf of Arnold bread from? Bimbo did not build the American bread aisle. It bought it over 16 years in an order that still shows. 1998, Mrs. Baird's of Fort Worth. Minnie Dilla Harrison Baird started baking in 1908 because her husband's diabetes had stopped him working. He died in 1911 and she carried on with 4 sons. The family incorporated in 1926. In 1996, the company filed for bankruptcy following a price-fixing conviction. 2 years later, Grupo Bimbo bought what was then the largest family-owned bakery in the United States. Neither side published a price. 2002, $610 million for George Weston's Western U.S. baking business. This bought the Oroweat brand outright, full rights to Entenmann's in the West, and Western distribution rights to Thomas and Bimbo Lee, along with 5 bakeries in Texas, Colorado, California, and Oregon, and about 1,300 routes. Roberto Cervita, then chairman, called it a goal, quote, "we saw for many years." End quote. The deal doubled Bimbo's U.S. revenue. Read that again for what it means. For 7 years, Bimbo owned Thomas English Muffins in the West and not in the East. 2008, the rest. On December 10th, Grupo Bimbo announced it would buy Weston Foods, Incorporated for $2,380 million. Arnold, Bimbo Lee, Bromberry, Entenmann's, FRY Hofers, STRY Man and Thomas, with 22 bakeries, more than 4,000 routes and more than 8,000 employees. Several news organizations reported the figure as $2.5 billion. Bimbo's own release says 2,380. Daniel Cervita called it, quote, "the most important one in Grupo Bimbo's history, and one of the largest in the bread industry." End quote. W. Galen Weston, selling, said he believed Bimbo, quote, "will be an excellent steward of this exceptional business." End quote. 2010, Sara Lee's North American Fresh Bakery. 41 plants, roughly 4,800 routes, while 13,000 employees, $2 billion in annual sales. Announced enterprise value, $959 million. 2014, Canada Bread, for $1.83 billion Canadian dollars. That is the aisle. Arnold began in Stamford, Connecticut in 1940 with Dean and Betty Arnold. Ballpark Buns, by its own website's account, is a part of Bimbo Bakeries USA. Thomas began in 1880. No package mentions Mexico. Look again at the last line of that list. On June 21st, 2023, Canada Bread pleaded guilty to 4 counts of price fixing and paid a $50 million Canadian fine, the highest price fixing fine in Canadian court history. With Weston Foods, it had raised the wholesale price of bagged bread, hot dog buns and rolls twice, in 2007 and in 2011. Matthew Boswell, the Commissioner of Competition, called fixing the price of a staple like bread a serious criminal offense. The owner during that conduct was Maple Leaf Foods. Bimbo bought the company in 2014. Then the order reverses. On November 28, 2024, Grupo Bimbo claimed $2 billion Canadian from Maple Leaf Foods and former executives in the Ontario Superior Court. The claim says the compliance representations made at the 2014 sale were false, and that Bimbo learned of the allegations only in October 2017. Michael McCain, Maple Leaf's board chair, called the suit an abusive process and entirely without merit, and said the company has always acted appropriately. The entity that pleaded guilty is owned by Bimbo now. The conduct happened under Maple Leaf. Bimbo is the plaintiff. All 3 sentences are true, and the order is the content. Here the frame breaks. Bimbo does not own Sara Lee. What it acquired in 2010, in the exact words of its own release, was a, quote, royalty-free perpetual license to the Sara Lee brand for fresh bakery products in the Americas, Asia, Africa, and Eastern and Central Europe. End quote. A license, not a title. Permanent, free of charge, and cut down by product category and geography. 2 years later, part of that license went out the door again. Under the Justice Department settlement, BBU Incorporated sold Flowers Foods a perpetual, exclusive, royalty-free license to use Sara Lee and Earth Grains on sliced breads, buns and rolls in California, a business with about $134 million in annual sales, plus an Earth Grains license in Oklahoma City. No plants changed hands. No routes changed hands. Flowers bought names. Georgie Deese, then Flowers chairman and chief executive, described it in terms of reach. Quote, about 14.5 million people added to the 70% of the U.S. population that currently has access to our fresh breads and rolls. End quote. Meanwhile, the Sara Lee in the freezer case belongs to someone else entirely. On June 1st, 2018, Tyson Foods agreed to sell Sara Lee Frozen Bakery, together with Vans, Chef Pierre and Bistro Collection, to the private equity firm Kohlberg & Company. 2 plants, in Tarboro, North Carolina and Traverse City, Michigan, and 1,160 employees. Tyson retained a license to use the Sara Lee name in certain channels of its own. Put the 3 side by side. Fresh Bakery, Grupo Bimbo, on a license granted in 2010. Sliced bread, buns and rolls in California. Flowers Foods, on a license. Frozen. The business went to Kohlberg & Company, and Tyson kept a license of its own. 3 different companies stand behind one name. A shopper in Los Angeles who puts a Sara Lee loaf and a Sara Lee pie in the same cart has bought from 2 unrelated companies. Drive that cart to Phoenix and the loaf changes companies again. Charles Lubin started the business in Chicago. That much the brand still says. Everything downstream has been cut into licenses. Then Washington took some of it back. On October 21st, 2011, the United States sued Grupo Bimbo and BBU in federal court in Washington, D.C. case number 1-11 CV 01857. It settled the same day. Charles A. Posen, then acting head of the antitrust division, said the 2 businesses, quote, aggressively compete head-to-head for sliced fresh bread sold in retail stores. End quote. The government's market was narrow by design, a product market, quote, no broader than sliced bread, end quote, meaning fresh bagged loaves sold through supermarkets, mass merchandisers, club stores, and convenience stores. Inside that definition, in 8 named metropolitan areas, the combined post-merger share of the top 2 sellers ran from 52% in Kansas City and Omaha to 63% in San Diego. Those figures are usable only with all 4 fences standing. 2011. Those 8 metros. Top 2 combined. Bagged sliced bread at retail. They are not a national share. No national share appears in any primary document I could find, which is why none appears here. The remedy was brand by brand and city by city. Earth Grains and the entire Sara Lee family in California. Wholesome and Milano in central Pennsylvania. Earth Grains in Oklahoma City. Earth Grains and Healthy Choice in Omaha. And in Kansas City, Earth Grains and Mrs. Baird's. 13 years after buying the Fort Worth bakery, Bimbo was required to hand that name to a competitor in one American city in order to keep the rest of the deal. The price moved too. Sara Lee's North American fresh bakery went from an announced enterprise value of $959 million to $709 million by the time the Justice Department cleared it, a reduction of $250 million by subtraction. The company said the divested brands and assets accounted for about $155 million of the target's $2 billion in sales. It published no reconciliation between those two numbers, and I am not going to supply one. Which leaves the sixth question. Who signs the paycheck? Bimbo Bakeries USA employs more than 20,000 people in the United States and operates more than 50 manufacturing locations. It also has more than 12,500 distribution routes, and who works them is an open question in 2026. Much of the bread moves through distributors who buy a route and run it as their own business. Whether that makes them contractors or employees has now been decided 4 times, 4 different ways. In 2020, they were contractors. On September 15th, the Second Circuit decided France against Bimbo Bakeries USA, Judges Sack, Wesley, and Sullivan applying the 5-factor economic reality test and affirming summary judgment for the company. That is the strongest form of Bimbo's position, and it deserves its own card. A federal appeals court, on a full record, found that, quote, the economic reality was that Bimbo did not exercise significant control, end quote, over the men suing it. These distributors bought their routes. They paid for them. In 2023, the answer went the other way, on a narrower point. Distributors in Vermont sued for overtime under the Fair Labor Standards Act, and Bimbo counterclaimed. If the drivers were employees, they should repay what they had earned as contractors. On December 5th, the court dismissed the counterclaim, holding that state law counterclaims undercutting Fair Labor Standards Act protections are impermissible and would discourage workers from asserting their rights. The Department of Labor had moved for that dismissal. Seema Nanda, the Solicitor of Labor, said the ruling, quote, strengthens worker rights under the FLSA, end quote. In May 2026, the Second Circuit ruled again in Proventure against Bimbo Foods Bakeries distribution, and again for the company. The issue was jurisdiction, not status. Judges Lynch, Lowier, and Menashe held that the Fair Labor Standards Act does not authorize nationwide service of process, and that, quote, the record does not support the exercise of personal jurisdiction over the out-of-state plaintiff's claims, end quote. Reversed and remanded. The classification question was never reached. And in Massachusetts, in Iguanago against Bimbo Bakeries USA, a court found in March 2026 that the drivers fall inside the Federal Arbitration Act's exemption for transportation workers. They spent 50 to 60 hours a week delivering inside the company's interstate distribution network. At the final stage, arbitration was not compelled. Then on May 22nd, the same court vacated its adoption of that ruling and stayed the case entirely, pending the First Circuit's decision in Peltier against LePage Bakeries Park Street, which it expects to be determinative on whether a distribution agreement is a contract of employment. 4 rulings. Contractors, then a company loss, then a company win on venue, then a driver win now frozen. The honest answer to the 6th question is that nobody knows. On April 22, 2026, Bimbo Bakeries USA announced it was moving its corporate headquarters out of Horsham, Pennsylvania, to 5525 MacArthur Boulevard in Irving, Texas. Among the reasons the company gave was Dallas's proximity to Grupo Bimbo's office in Mexico City. Greg Coason, the president, put it in the language of a household, quote, Texas was our first home and played a defining role in our early history. End quote. And, quote, we are deeply grateful to the greater Philadelphia community. The Philadelphia area was our home for 17 years. End quote. The first home was Mrs. Baird's. It was bought in 1998 from the descendants of a woman who started baking in Fort Worth in 1908 because her husband could no longer work, and a federal consent decree cut that name out of Kansas City 13 years later. The head office has now gone back to the state it came from, in part to sit closer to Mexico City. Fill in all 6. Born, Mexico City. Incorporated, Mexico City, 21 years later. Head office, Texas. Shareholders, 6 holding companies whose names most people have never heard, holding 72.04% between them. Factories, more than 15 in the United States, 249 worldwide. Payroll, still in court. 6 questions, 6 answers, and 2 of them agree. Which brings back the number. The muffin is still made by a method that in 2010, on a federal court's count, 7 people fully knew. The company that owns it reports in pesos. Neither fact is printed on the bag.